Why do some people seem to win no matter what they try? Different industries, different skills, different environments, yet somehow they rise. It's not luck, it's not talent, and it's definitely not motivation. There's a hidden pattern behind consistent success, a way of thinking and operating, a way that gives certain people an edge in every room they walk into. In How to Win in Anything You Do, you'll discover the invisible rules most people never learn. The mindset shifts that turn average effort into unfair results. The small strategic adjustments that compound into massive advantages over time. Winning isn't about being the best. It's about thinking better than the rest. If you're ready to understand the real game behind every game, like this video, subscribe for more deep insights, and share it with someone who's serious about leveling up. Chapter 1. The decision to win. Most people don't lose because they lack talent. They lose because they never decide. They dabble. They try things the way someone tests a pool with one toe, ready to pull back at the first shock. Winning begins earlier than skill, earlier than strategy, earlier than luck. Winning begins the moment you stop negotiating with yourself and you choose a standard. Picture a small-town basketball gym on a winter night. The lights buzz. The floor squeaks. A kid is shooting alone long after practice ended, not because anyone is watching, but because he's tired of being average. He misses. He rebounds. He shoots again. His hands are cold, his legs are heavy, and he keeps going anyway. The next season, he's not just better, he's different. He plays like he belongs. What changed? Not the gym, not the ball, not the rules. He changed. He made a decision about who he was going to be. When it was inconvenient, that decision is the first edge you can build in anything you do. Business, relationships, fitness, sales, parenting, school. A trade, a sport, a creative craft. You cannot win casually. You can participate casually. You can talk casually. You can dream casually, but you cannot win casually. Winning has a cost. The cost is not suffering for the sake of suffering. The cost is clarity. The cost is commitment. The cost is saying no to the version of you that wants the exit door cracked open. Here's the truth that stings but sets you free. The world pays for results, not intentions. Your boss doesn't promote potential. Your customers don't buy what you meant to build. Your body doesn't transform because you bought gym shoes. Your relationship doesn't heal because you promised to be better. The scoreboard doesn't care how hard you hoped. The world rewards the person who shows up with a plan, repeats the plan, adjusts the plan, and stays long enough for the plan to work. But before you can build plans, you have to build identity. Identity is the engine. Most people try to win with motivation. Motivation is a match. It flares up, it looks bright, and it goes out. Identity is a furnace. It keeps burning when the weather changes. So how do you build the identity of a winner without pretending, without hype, without needing some perfect moment? You start by choosing a code. A code is a simple rule you live by. When you're tired, when you're busy, when you're tempted, when no one would know if you quit, a code sounds like this. I do what I said I would do. I don't bargain with my standards. I finish what I start. I train even when I don't feel like it. I return the call. I tell the truth. I keep my word. I don't need applause to be consistent. In the USA, we love the comeback story, the underdog who surprises everyone, the entrepreneur who starts in a garage, the athlete who gets cut and comes back stronger, the soldier who returns home and rebuilds. Those stories are inspiring because they show a hidden reality. Winning is not a personality trait, it's a practice. People who win aren't born with magical confidence. They build confidence through evidence. They stack small proofs that say, I can count on myself. Think about a contractor who wins more work than everyone else in town. It's not always the one with the fanciest truck. It's the one who finishes on schedule, communicates clearly, handles problems without drama, and leaves the job site cleaner than he found it. Over time, his reputation becomes a magnet. That's winning, not flashy, reliable, predictable, professional. That contractor decided years earlier that his name meant something. He chose a code and lived it until the market could feel it. Now bring this back to your life. You can win in anything you do, but not by trying to win at everything at the same time. Winning starts with focus. The enemy of winning is scattered effort. If your attention is split across 10 goals, you're not building momentum. You're building frustration. Choose your arena. Choose what matters most right now. Not forever, right now. Then decide that your standard in that arena is non-negotiable. Here's a metaphor that will make it clear. Imagine you're pushing a boulder. At first it barely moves. Every shove feels useless, but you keep pushing, and a small shift happens, then a bigger shift. Then once the boulder starts rolling, the same effort creates more distance. That's momentum. Most people quit while the boulder is still stuck. Winners stay until it moves. Your job in Chapter 1 is to get the boulder moving. And to do that, you need 3 things: a clear target, a personal standard, and a daily action. First, a clear target. Vague goals create vague effort. I want to be successful is not a target. I want to lose weight is not a target. I want to do better is not a target. A target has a finish line you can see. It's measurable in real terms. It's specific enough that you can tell if you're on track. You don't need complicated metrics. You need clarity. If you're in sales, it might be a number. If you're building a business, it might be a launch date and revenue target. If you're working on your body, it might be consistent training days and nutrition adherence. If you're improving a relationship, it might be daily communication and weekly time together with no distractions. Whatever it is, define it like a person who expects to hit it. Second, a personal standard. This is different from the goal. The goal is where you're going. The standard is how you show up. The standard is the version of you that walks into the room. People with low standards need constant supervision. People with high standards supervise themselves. Your standard might be this: I'm early, not on time. I return messages the same day. I do one hard thing before noon. I don't skip 2 days in a row. I practice when I'm not in the mood. I don't wait to be rescued by motivation. Third, a daily action, not a daily plan with 12 steps. A daily action that is so doable you have no excuse, but so meaningful it moves the needle. A writer writes a page. A runner runs. A student studies a set block. A manager has one difficult conversation instead of avoiding it. A person rebuilding their finances tracks spending and makes one disciplined decision. Daily actions win because they create compounding. The secret advantage in America isn't access, it's consistency. Most people have access to information. Few people apply it day after day. And now you need to confront what will try to stop you: comfort, distraction, and the fear of looking foolish. Comfort says you deserve a break. Comfort sounds reasonable, but it quietly steals your future. Breaks are healthy when they're chosen and timed. Comfort becomes poison when it becomes a habit. Distraction says, do a little of everything and you'll feel productive. Distraction is movement without progress. And fear says, if you try hard and fail, you'll feel exposed. So you hold back, so you can tell yourself you didn't really try. That's the oldest trap in the book. protecting your ego by sabotaging your effort. Winners do the opposite. They risk looking foolish. They commit before they feel ready. They let action build confidence, instead of waiting for confidence to create action. There's a story you've seen in workplaces across the country. Two people start the same job. One does only what's required and talks about how they're just being realistic. The other asks questions, takes notes, learns the system, stays 5 minutes longer, and gets better every week. After a year, they're not even in the same league. One is stuck complaining about unfairness. The other is being trusted with bigger responsibilities. Same environment, different decision. If you want to win, you have to stop treating your life like a debate and start treating it like a build. Builders don't argue with the blueprint. They lay bricks, and every brick is a choice. Every day you either lay a brick or you don't. Every day you either become the kind of person who follows through or the kind of person who explains. If this audiobook is bringing you value so far, take a moment to like it, share it with someone who needs to hear this. Leave a comment with your biggest takeaway, and subscribe to Prime Audiobooks for more content like this. Now, let's continue. Let's talk about pressure. Because pressure is where most people fold. The way you handle pressure determines whether your potential becomes reality. Pressure shows up when the stakes rise, when time is tight, when people are watching, when you don't feel prepared. Pressure is not the problem. Pressure reveals the truth. Under pressure, you don't rise to your hopes. You fall to your habits. So the winning move is simple. Build habits that hold under stress. That means you practice your fundamentals when it's easy, so you can rely on them when it's hard. In football, teams run drills until they can do them in their sleep. Because on Sunday, when the stadium is loud and the clock is bleeding out, you don't have time to invent new skills. You execute what's trained. This is why people who wing it lose so often. They rely on mood and adrenaline. That works until it doesn't. The person who wins is the person who prepared. When no one was forcing them, preparation isn't glamorous. It's not a highlight reel. It's quiet, it's routine. It's doing the boring things that create the exciting outcomes. It's meal prepping when you'd rather order takeout. It's studying when your friends are out. It's practicing your pitch when you'd rather scroll. It's saving money when you want to impulse buy. It's going to bed on time when you want another episode. Winning is 1,000 small disciplines that most people dismiss. Now understand this. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is self-respect in action. Discipline is you telling yourself, my future matters more than my feelings in this moment. That's not harsh. That's love with a backbone. So take a hard look at the version of you who keeps almost winning, almost in shape, almost consistent, almost confident, almost ready, almost committed, almost successful. Almost is a comfortable prison. It lets you feel close without paying the full price. Winning requires you to leave almost behind. The decision to win is not a one-time speech you give yourself. It's a daily renewal. It's waking up and choosing your standard again. It's telling the truth about your habits. It's owning your results without excuses, not with shame, with responsibility, because responsibility is power. When you take responsibility, you stop being at the mercy of circumstances. You stop needing perfect conditions. You become dangerous in the best way. Someone who can adapt, learn, and keep moving. As this chapter closes, let the question land where it needs to land. Where in your life have you been negotiating with your own standards? What goal have you kept vague so you wouldn't have to fully commit? What daily action done consistently would move your boulder enough to create momentum? And if you decided today, not tomorrow, Not next Monday, but today, that you are the kind of person who follows through. What would you do in the next 24 hours to prove it to yourself? Chapter 2. The process that makes you unstoppable. Last chapter wasn't about hype. It was about a decision. You stop negotiating. You choose a standard, and you prove it with daily action. You learn that pressure doesn't create your performance, it reveals it. And that consistency is the quiet advantage most people refuse to earn. Now we take that decision and turn it into something stronger than motivation. A process you can trust. Winning looks dramatic on the outside, but it's built through something plain on the inside. Process is the bridge between who you are today and the results you want tomorrow. People who lose spend their energy chasing outcomes. People who win spend their energy owning inputs. They don't ask, how do I feel today? They ask, what does the work require today? They don't obsess over applause or rankings. They obsess over reps. Think about the way an elite chef operates during a dinner rush in a packed American restaurant. Tickets stack up. The kitchen is loud. The heat is relentless. A beginner panics and tries to do everything at once. An expert doesn't. An expert moves in sequence. Knife work clean, station organized, timing controlled. One step flows into the next, not because they're calm by nature, but because they trained a process that holds under stress. Winning in any arena is the same when the pressure hits. You don't need a new personality, you need a reliable system. Here's the trap most people fall into. They build their life around peak days, the days they're energized, inspired, confident. But winning isn't decided on peak days. Winning is decided on normal days, on the days when you slept weird. The day got busy, the mood isn't there, and you still show up. The process is what carries you through the middle, and the middle is where almost everyone quits. So what is a winning process? It has 3 parts: the right inputs, the right feedback, and the right adjustments. If you're missing one of these, you either drift or burn out. First, the right inputs. Inputs are the controllable actions you can do repeatedly. Not heroic, not complicated, repeatable. If you're trying to win at your health, inputs are training, nutrition, sleep, hydration, steps, and stress management. If you're trying to win in your career, inputs are your skill development, your communication, your reliability, your speed of learning, and your ability to solve problems without needing hand-holding. If you're trying to win in business, inputs are leads, offers, product quality, customer experience, and consistent execution. The outcome is what you want. The inputs are what you do. The second part is feedback. Most people avoid feedback because it threatens their ego, but ego is expensive. It makes you pay with time. Feedback tells you what's working and what is, while you can still change it. Without feedback, you can grind hard in the wrong direction and call it dedication. That's not dedication. That's stubbornness. A real winner is not just disciplined. A real winner is coachable. Coachable doesn't mean you take every opinion seriously. It means you can separate your identity from your performance long enough to improve it. You can look at your results without flinching. You can ask, what does this data say about my habits? And then you can do something about it. A sales rep who wins doesn't just make calls. They track conversion rates. They review recordings. They role-play objections. They tighten their script. They ask a manager to critique them. They test, measure, and refine. A student who wins doesn't just study longer. They study smarter. They test themselves. They identify weak areas. They use practice questions and review mistakes. A runner who wins doesn't just run hard every day. They follow a plan, watch recovery, build mileage intelligently. and respect the process that prevents injury. The third part is adjustment. Feedback without adjustment is entertainment. You can listen to podcasts, take notes, and feel productive while nothing changes. Adjustment is where winning becomes real. Adjustment is the moment you choose discomfort now, so you don't pay regret later. Let me give you a real-world example you've seen in the American workforce. Two people get the same performance review. One hears it as an attack and spends the next month defending their ego. The other hears it as a map and spends the next month improving. Same feedback, different reaction. In 6 months, one has the same problems and louder excuses. The other has new skills and new opportunities. The difference is not intelligence. The difference is humility paired with action. Now, to build a process that makes you unstoppable, you need to simplify. Most people overcomplicate their improvement because complexity lets them procrastinate. They keep planning because planning feels safer than performing. But winning isn't built by elaborate intentions. It's built by simple execution, repeated until it becomes identity. So here's the simple structure to run your day like a winner. Start with one priority, protect one block of focus, and finish with one review. One priority means you decide the single most important outcome you are driving today, in your chosen arena, not 10 tasks, not a scattered list. One priority that moves the needle. It could be finishing a proposal, getting a workout done, having the hard conversation, making the calls, writing the pages, studying the chapter, practicing the skill. You choose it before the day chooses for you. Protect one block of focus means you schedule a window where you do the work without distractions. No multitasking, no open tabs, no phone, just you and the task. In America, distraction is the default. Everyone's competing for your attention. If you don't defend your focus, you will spend your best hours reacting instead of building. And then you'll wonder why your life isn't changing. It isn't changing because your attention isn't changing. Finish with one review means you take a few minutes at the end of the day. Did I do what I said I would do? What worked today? What didn't? What's the adjustment for tomorrow? This isn't an emotional interrogation. It's a calm audit. Winners don't avoid the truth. They use it. There's another piece that most people ignore, and it's the piece that separates the driven from the durable: energy management. You can't win long-term if your process burns you down. People love to talk about hustle, but hustle without recovery turns into sloppy work, bad decisions, and resentment. A pro doesn't just train hard. A pro recovers hard. A pro protects sleep. A pro fuels their body. A pro schedules downtime so their work stays sharp. You're not trying to prove you can suffer. You're trying to build a life that can perform. That means you stop glamorizing exhaustion. If you're always tired, always behind, always frantic, that's not a badge of honor. That's a warning sign. The goal is steady dominance, not chaotic effort. Let's make this practical in a way you can use immediately. Choose a skill that directly increases your odds of winning in your arena. Just one. If you're in business, maybe it's persuasion, negotiation, or marketing. If you're in a trade, maybe it's precision, speed, or safety. If you're in management, maybe it's leadership, conversations, and accountability. If you want to win in your body, maybe it's cooking simple high-protein meals or mastering form on fundamental lifts. Then commit to daily reps. Daily reps don't have to be long, they have to be consistent and honest. 10 minutes of focused practice beats 2 hours of distracted effort. When you practice a skill daily, you're not just improving the skill, you're becoming the kind of person who practices. That identity shift is everything. And don't miss this. You will never feel ready before you begin. Readiness is earned through repetition. Confidence is built after action, not before it. That's why the process matters so much. The process is your way of acting even when you don't feel like it, and then letting your results catch up. Expect resistance. Your brain will try to protect the old you. It will whisper, "This is too much." Even when it's not, it will tempt you to break your own standards. Just this once. That's why you need your code. And that's why you need your process. When resistance shows up, you don't debate it, you execute, you keep your word, you do the next right step. There's a moment in every winning journey where the progress is invisible. The workouts aren't showing yet. The business isn't taking off yet. The skill still feels awkward. The relationship changes feel slow. That's where most people slip back into almost. A winner doesn't. A winner understands the lag. The lag is the delay between planting the seed and seeing the harvest. The lag is not failure. The lag is the price of growth. So you decide in advance how you'll behave during the lag. You don't panic. You don't quit. You don't change your goal every week. You keep your input strong. You measure honestly. And you adjust like a professional. You stay long enough for the boulder to roll. If this audiobook is bringing you value so far, take a moment to like it. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. Leave a comment with your biggest takeaway, and subscribe to Prime Audiobooks for more content like this. Now let's continue. Now I want you to picture two kinds of people at the gym at 6 a.m. One person is waiting to feel inspired. They scroll, they stretch forever, they do whatever feels comfortable, and they leave with the same body they walked in with. The other person walks in with a plan. They warm up quickly. They hit the fundamentals. They track their progress. And they leave knowing they did the work. Over months, that difference becomes impossible to hide. And the same is true in business, in relationships, in learning, in life. The plan is not a prison. The plan is freedom. The plan removes decision fatigue. The plan turns you into someone who executes. So here's the real question beneath all of this. Are you willing to be consistent when it's boring? Because boredom is the gatekeeper to mastery. The basics are not exciting, but the basics are what win. The fundamentals are not trendy, but the fundamentals are what hold. The person who masters the basics doesn't just beat people who skip them. They beat people who dabble in everything else. You don't need a new personality to win. You need a process that turns your standards into results. You need inputs you can repeat, feedback you can face, and adjustments you can make without drama. You need one priority, one protected focus block, and one daily review. You need reps. You need patience. You need the kind of discipline that looks ordinary, while it builds something extraordinary. And as you move into the rest of this audiobook, let these questions sit with you in a way that makes you act. What is the single arena you are choosing to win in right now? And what are the inputs that would make winning inevitable over time? What feedback have you been avoiding because it threatens your ego? And what would change if you treated it like a map instead? What adjustment do you already know you need to make? And what is the smallest daily rep you can start today to prove you're serious? Chapter 3. The mindset that outlasts every obstacle. You've already made the decision to stop negotiating with yourself. And you've started building a process you can trust on normal days, not just peak days. You've learned to win by owning inputs, facing feedback, and making adjustments without drama. Now it's time to harden the part of you that keeps going when life pushes back, because life will push back. You can have talent and still lose. if your mind folds at the first sign of resistance. In the real world, obstacles aren't a surprise. They are the admission ticket. The market shifts, the boss changes, the client says no, the body gets sore, the family needs you, the bills show up. The confidence drops. If your mindset depends on everything being smooth, you're going to quit on a rough week. And call it being realistic. Winning requires a mindset that treats obstacles like terrain, not like stop signs. There's a moment on every long road trip across the United States when the scenery stops being exciting. The first hour feels fresh, the playlist is good, and the destination feels close. Then you hit miles of open highway, a stretch of construction, a detour, maybe bad weather. The thrill disappears, and the grind shows up. The driver who reaches the destination isn't the one who had the best playlist. It's the one who kept the wheel steady and stayed patient through the boring and the frustrating. Your goals are like that road trip. The start is loud. The middle is quiet. The finish belongs to the person who doesn't panic when the middle feels long. The mindset that wins is not positive thinking. It's disciplined thinking. It's the ability to direct your attention, interpret setbacks correctly, and keep your standards when your emotions are messy. Your thoughts create your actions, and your actions create your outcomes. If you want to win in anything, you have to learn to control the story you tell yourself under pressure. Most people narrate their life like a victim without realizing it. They don't say, "I'm a victim." They say, "I can't because," they say, "it's not fair." They say, "I'm just not built for this." They say, "I always mess this up." That story feels protective. Because if you're doomed by circumstances, you don't have to risk fully committing, but that story costs you your future. A winning mindset tells a different story. It says, "This is hard and I can do hard." It says, "This isn't working yet, so I'll adjust." It says, "I'm responsible for my effort and my habits." It says, "I'm not special, but I am consistent." It says, "I can be behind and still be on my way." It says, "This obstacle is training me." Training is the right word. Because the obstacle is not just in your way, it is shaping you. The pressure you survive becomes your capacity. The frustration you push through becomes your resilience. The no you endure becomes your confidence in the face of rejection. The muscle soreness becomes strength. The awkward reps become skill. The tough conversations become leadership. Think about a young firefighter in a small American city. The first time the alarm hits and the adrenaline surges, everything feels intense. The gear feels heavy. The smoke is disorienting. The noise is constant. If that firefighter depends on feeling calm to do the job, they freeze, but over time, with training and repetition, they learn to control what they can: breathing, movement, communication, procedure. They don't need to feel fearless. They need to operate. That's winning, not the absence of fear, but the presence of controlled action. You need that same ability in your arena, and it starts with separating feelings from decisions. Feelings are real, but they are not always accurate. They are weather, not direction. You can feel tired and still do the work. You can feel uncertain and still take the step. You can feel discouraged and still keep your standards. Winning doesn't require you to feel like a winner. Winning requires you to behave like one. Here's a practical way to do it. When you feel resistance, don't ask yourself, "How do I get rid of this feeling?" Ask, "What's the next right action?" Then do that. You're not waiting for the emotion to change. You're changing the emotion by moving. And let's be honest about what resistance often looks like in modern America. It looks like your phone. It looks like endless content. It looks like 1,000 little distractions. It looks like stress eating. It looks like impulse spending. It looks like avoiding that call, that workout, that task, that conversation. It looks like being too tired for the things that matter, and somehow having energy for the things that don't. The winning mindset treats distraction like a threat, not because you're weak, but because your attention is your life. Where your attention goes, your results follow. So you don't just work hard, you work protected. You put friction between you and the habits that sabotage you. You don't rely on willpower alone. You design your environment so winning is easier and losing is inconvenient. Picture a person who wants to get in shape, but keeps failing at night. Every evening turns into snacks and scrolling, then guilt, then a promise that tomorrow will be different. A winning move is not a dramatic speech, it's a practical change. The snacks don't live on the counter, the phone doesn't live on the couch. The gym clothes are laid out, dinner is planned, bedtime is protected. That's not extreme, that's intelligent. It's you respecting the fact that you are human, and humans respond to cues. Now take the same principle to your career. If you want to win at work, your environment includes your calendar, your communication, and your standards. You show up prepared, you write things down, you follow through. You do the hard task before the easy tasks. You make yourself valuable by solving problems, not by collecting excuses. And you stop waiting for someone to discover you. Winners don't wait to be rescued. They build a reputation that becomes unavoidable. There's a mindset shift that will change your entire relationship with obstacles. You stop asking for easier, and you start building stronger. You stop seeking comfort as a strategy. Comfort is fine as recovery, but comfort is a terrible leader. If comfort runs your day, your goals become optional, and if your goals are optional, your future becomes random. Stronger doesn't mean angry. Stronger means steady. Stronger means you can take a hit and stay in the fight. Stronger means you can feel disappointed and still execute the plan. Stronger means you can hear no and still make the next call. Stronger means you can lose a round without losing your identity, because setbacks will try to poison your identity. You'll miss a deadline, you'll mess up a presentation, you'll get rejected, you'll relapse into an old habit, you'll waste a week. The losing mindset says, "See, this proves I'm not the kind of person who wins." The winning mindset says, "This is information, this is a moment. I'm still the kind of person who follows through, and my next action proves it." That's the key. You don't let a bad moment become a bad identity, and you don't let one win make you careless either. Success has its own trap. After you start improving, you'll be tempted to ease off. You'll tell yourself you've earned it. And maybe you have, but if you let your standards slide, the results will slide too. Winning requires you to treat success like a responsibility. You hold the line when things are going well, so you don't have to rebuild when things fall apart. This mindset becomes unstoppable when you pair it with one more skill: emotional control under pressure. Most people are not losing because they lack ability. They're losing because they're reactive. They get triggered. They get defensive. They get overwhelmed. Then they say something they shouldn't. They spend money they shouldn't. They skip what they shouldn't. They quit what they shouldn't. A winner learns to pause, not for a week, for 5 seconds, long enough to choose the response, instead of being dragged by impulse. In those 5 seconds, you breathe, you remember your standard, you ask, what does the work require? And you do the next right thing. That pause is power. That pause is maturity. That pause is the gap between a life that happens to you and a life you lead. So here's what you're building in this chapter. You're building a mind that doesn't collapse, a mind that doesn't need perfect conditions, a mind that uses obstacles as training, a mind that protects attention, designs environment, and keeps identity intact through setbacks, because the truth is simple. Winning is rarely about the big moment. It's about how you behave in the small moments that no one applauds. The moment you put the phone down, the moment you make the call, the moment you choose the healthier meal, the moment you do the rep with good form, the moment you tell the truth, the moment you admit you were wrong and adjust, the moment you get back on track fast instead of waiting for a clean slate. That is the mindset that outlasts every obstacle. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's disciplined. If this audiobook is bringing you value so far, take a moment to like it, share it with someone who needs to hear this. Leave a comment with your biggest takeaway, and subscribe to Prime Audiobooks for more content like this. Now let's continue. And now, as you step forward, let these questions sit in your mind the way a coach's words echo in a quiet gym. When resistance shows up, what story do you usually tell yourself? And what story would a winner tell instead? Where in your life are you letting feelings make decisions? And what would change if you separated emotion from action? What distraction is stealing your attention most? And what one environmental change would make winning easier and losing inconvenient? When you face your next setback, how fast will you return to your standards? And what next right action will prove to you that you are still the person you decided to be? Chapter 4. The skills that make people bet on you. You've made the decision to stop negotiating with yourself. You've built a process that holds on normal days, and you've trained your mind to treat obstacles like terrain instead of stop signs. You're learning to execute without waiting for perfect feelings, and to protect your attention like it's your future. Now we add a force multiplier. The skills that make other people trust you, follow you, hire you, buy from you, and stand with you. Here's a reality most people avoid because it's uncomfortable. You can be talented and still lose if you're hard to work with. You can be smart and still stall if you can't communicate. You can have the best intentions and still be overlooked if you don't build trust. In the United States, opportunity moves through people, jobs, clients, partnerships, promotions, referrals, support in tough seasons, introductions that change your life. They all travel through relationships, and relationships are built on reliability and respect, not charisma. Winning isn't just what you do when you're alone. It's how you show up when you're accountable to others. It's how you handle conflict. It's how you keep your word. It's how you communicate under pressure. It's how you treat people who can't do anything for you. The person who wins long-term is the person people feel safe betting on. So let's talk about trust, because trust is the currency of results. Imagine two contractors bidding for the same job in a suburban neighborhood. Both can do the work. One shows up late, talks in vague terms, and seems annoyed by questions. The other shows up on time, explains the plan in plain language, points out potential problems before they happen, and follows up the same day with a clear estimate. The homeowner doesn't just pick the better price. They pick the safer choice. They pick the person who reduces uncertainty. That's what trust does. Trust lowers risk. And your life is full of moments where people are deciding whether you reduce risk or create it. To become someone people bet on, you need 3 core skills: communication that creates clarity, boundaries that protect standards, and emotional leadership that stays steady in tense moments. First, communication that creates clarity. Most miscommunication isn't caused by bad intent. It's caused by vagueness. People say, "I'll get to it soon." They say, "I'll try." They say, "We should connect sometime." That's not communication, that's fog. Fog creates frustration. Fog creates mistakes. Fog creates mistrust. Clarity is a winning advantage because it prevents needless problems. Clarity sounds like, "I will deliver this by Thursday at 3 p.m." Clarity sounds like, "Here are the 3 options and the trade-offs." Clarity sounds like, "What I heard you say is this, is that right?" Clarity sounds like, "I can't do that by Monday, but I can do it by Wednesday." Clarity doesn't need to be aggressive. It needs to be honest. If you want to win at work, start here. Become a person who communicates in timelines, not vibes. And if you mess up, don't hide. You own it early. You give the updated timeline. You explain the next steps. People don't lose trust because you're imperfect. They lose trust because you go silent, because you dodge, because you make them chase the truth. In any field, the person who can communicate clearly becomes valuable fast. Managers want it, clients crave it, teams need it, and you can practice it today with one simple habit. Before you end any conversation about a task, confirm what done looks like and when it will happen. That one habit eliminates confusion and makes you look like a professional. Second, boundaries that protect standards. A lot of people think winning means saying yes to everything. They become available to everyone, responsive to every request, pulled into every urgent thing. They think that makes them dependable. It doesn't. It makes them deluded. It makes their best work impossible. They're busy, but they're not building. Boundaries are not selfish. Boundaries are how you honor your priorities. Boundaries are you protecting the focus block you already decided you de-protect. Boundaries are you preventing other people's chaos from becoming your identity. In a USA culture that celebrates busyness, boundaries feel uncomfortable at first. You might worry you'll seem rude. You might worry you'll miss out, but real winners learn a quiet truth. Saying no is often saying yes to your future. A boundary can be simple. "I can't take on that extra project this week, but I can help you find a solution." Or, "I'm available for calls between 10 and 2. Or, "I'll respond to messages after my deep work block." Or, "I don't do business by text after 7 p.m. Or, "I'm not available for that kind of relationship dynamic anymore." Boundaries are not about controlling others. They're about controlling your own choices. And boundaries only work when they're paired with consistency. If you break your boundary every time someone pushes, you don't have a boundary, you have a preference. Winners don't protect their standards only when it's convenient. They protect them when it's awkward. Third, emotional leadership. You might think leadership is a title. It's not. Leadership is behavior. Leadership is how you act when things go wrong. In any environment, people watch the steady person. They lean on the steady person. They follow the steady person. Even if they never say it out loud, they're searching for someone whose energy is controlled. Emotional leadership means you don't spread panic. You don't turn every problem into a meltdown. You don't dump your stress on everyone else and call it being honest. You can acknowledge reality without inflaming it. You can say, "This is a problem and we're going to solve it," without making it a tragedy. Think about a team in a warehouse during peak season, packages stacking, deadlines tight. The losing version of leadership barks, blames, and creates fear. The winning version stays direct, sets priorities, and moves people through the next right actions. Same pressure, different impact. One makes the team smaller, the other makes the team stronger. Emotional leadership also shows up at home. In a family, the steady person sets the tone. When conflict rises, that person can choose to escalate or stabilize. When money gets tight, that person can choose panic or plan. When a child makes a mistake, that person can choose humiliation or guidance. Winning in life includes winning in how you handle the people you love. Now let's go deeper. These skills are built on one foundational trait. Respect. Respect is not something you demand, it's something you generate through behavior. Respect grows when you are consistent, honest, and accountable. Respect grows when you don't gossip, when you don't undermine, when you don't make promises you can't keep. Respect grows when you do the hard conversation instead of the easy avoidance. And hard conversations are a critical skill if you want to win in anything that involves humans, which is everything. Most people avoid hard conversations because they fear discomfort. They'd rather let resentment build, then explode, or quietly detach. That's losing behavior. Winners address issues early, directly, and respectfully. A hard conversation can be calm and clean. You state what you observed, what the impact was, what you need going forward, and you listen. No theatrics, no personal attacks, just standards and solutions. There's a manager who wins and a manager who loses. And the difference is this. The winning manager doesn't let small problems become big fires. They don't let performance issues linger. They don't let confusion spread. They don't let resentment become culture. They have the conversation. They coach. They correct. They set expectations. They follow up. Their team becomes sharper because the environment becomes clearer. And you don't have to be a manager to do this. You can do it in friendships, in marriage, in business partnerships, in customer relationships. You can say, I value this and I need this to work. People respect standards that are communicated with calm strength. Now there's another skill that multiplies everything. Being someone who adds value before asking for value. A lot of people network like they're shopping for favors. They show up when they need something. They vanish when they don't. That's not connection, that's extraction, and people can feel it. Winners build relationships by being useful, by being genuine, by showing up with value. They recommend people, they share opportunities, they make introductions when it makes sense. They help without keeping score, while still having boundaries. They build social capital slowly. And then when life hits, that capital becomes support, not because they manipulated anyone, but because they invested in people as humans. In practical terms, this could look like sending a short message to someone in your industry after you read something helpful they posted. Not to flatter them, but to share a real insight and a sincere thanks. It could look like bringing a solution to your boss instead of only bringing problems. It could look like being the coworker who documents a process so the whole team gets faster. It could look like helping a neighbor with a small task without turning it into a performance. Value builds trust. Trust builds opportunity. And yes, you still need to advocate for yourself. Winning is not being invisible. It's being dependable and known. So learn to communicate your results without arrogance. Learn to speak in outcomes. Learn to say, here's what I delivered, here's the impact, and here's what I'm focused on next. That isn't bragging, that's clarity. It helps decision makers see you. Now let's connect all of this back to your personal standard. Everything we're talking about is your code applied in public. You keep your word. You do what you said you would do. You don't bargain with your standards. You finish what you start. You don't need applause to be consistent. When you live that way around other people, you become rare, and rare becomes valuable. Winning becomes easier when people trust you, when your name means something, when your reputation walks into the room before you do, when your communication reduces uncertainty, when your boundaries protect your best work, when your emotions stay steady under stress, when your relationships are built on value and respect. This chapter isn't asking you to become someone fake. It's asking you to become someone solid. If this audiobook is bringing you value so far, take a moment to like it, share it with someone who needs to hear this. Leave a comment with your biggest takeaway, and subscribe to Prime Audiobooks for more content like this. Now, let's continue. So as you move forward, let these questions press you into action. Where in your life are you being vague when clarity would build trust? And what specific words could you use to remove the fog? What boundary do you need to set so your standards stop getting diluted? And what will it cost you if you keep avoiding it? In your next tense moment, will you spread panic or set direction? And what would emotional leadership look like for you in that exact situation? Who could you help this week in a way that adds value without needing credit? And what kind of person would you become if you practice that consistently? Chapter 5. The edge of adaptation. Up to now, you've decided to stop negotiating with yourself. You've built a process that wins on normal days. You've trained your mind to treat resistance like training. And you've developed the skills that make people trust you and bet on you. That foundation matters, because winning isn't one big moment. It's a long stretch of choices that keeps stacking in your favor. Now we sharpen it into an edge most people never develop. The ability to adapt faster than the situation changes. A lot of people think winning is about domination. It's not. Winning is about staying effective when the game shifts. The rules change. The economy tightens. The competition gets smarter. Technology rewrites how work gets done. A new boss arrives with new expectations. A family situation demands more of you. A body that used to bounce back quickly suddenly needs smarter recovery. If your plan only works when life is predictable, your plan isn't strong. You need a plan that can flex without breaking. Adaptation is not quitting. Adaptation is not chasing shiny objects. Adaptation is what a professional does when reality gives new information. It's the difference between stubbornness and discipline. Discipline holds the standard. Adaptation adjusts the method. Think about a fisherman on the Gulf Coast. He can wake up and try the same spot, the same bait, the same timing, and if the water conditions changed, he can spend the whole day working hard and bringing home nothing. A pro doesn't take it personally. He reads the water, he checks the tide, he watches the birds, he moves, he changes approach, he keeps the goal and adjusts the route. That is adaptation. And if you want to win in anything, you need to become the kind of person who reads the environment and responds without panic. Most people don't lose because they lack effort. They lose because they keep repeating the wrong effort. They call it consistency, but it's not consistency if it isn't producing learning. Consistency is powerful only when it's paired with awareness. Otherwise, it's just repetition. So how do you build an edge through adaptation? You build a personal operating system that does three things. It spots what matters, it removes what doesn't, and it doubles down on what works. First, you spot what matters. Every arena has signals and noise. Noise is opinions, trends, drama, and distractions that feel urgent, but don't change your results. Signals are the small truths that predict outcomes. If you're in business, the signal might be your conversion rate, retention, referrals, or cash flow. If you're in a career, the signal might be the quality of your deliverables, how quickly you learn, and whether you solve problems without being chased. If you're trying to win in your body, the signal might be adherence, strength progression, sleep consistency, and how your energy feels across the week. The losing move is staring at noise and feeling busy. The winning move is tracking signal and getting better. This is why winners ask better questions, not "why is this happening to me?" but "what is this trying to teach me?" Not "how do I feel about it?" but "what is the data?" Not "what should I do next month?" but "what should I do today that will matter next month?" Second, you remove what doesn't matter. This is where most people refuse to do the grown-up work. They collect habits, commitments, and obligations like clutter in a garage. They have no space to build because they never throw anything out. They keep saying yes, then wonder why they can't focus. They keep consuming, then wonder why they can't create. They keep staying up late, then wonder why they can't win mornings. They keep entertaining people who drain them, then wonder why their energy is always low. Winning requires subtraction. It requires the courage to cut what is costing you more than it's paying you. Sometimes that's an app. Sometimes it's a routine. Sometimes it's a friendship. Sometimes it's a comfortable habit that has been quietly taxing your life. Subtraction isn't dramatic, it's deliberate. It's you protecting the one arena you chose. It's you remembering that every yes has a hidden no. If you say yes to distractions, you're saying no to your focus. If you say yes to comfort, you're saying no to growth. If you say yes to being liked by everyone, you're saying no to your standards. Third, you double down on what works. When something works, most people get bored and abandon it. They see progress, then they get casual, then they slide. Winners are different. Winners respect the basics that are producing results. They don't abandon what works just because it's not new. They keep their foundation strong, while they refine the details. This is where adaptation becomes elegant. You don't blow up your whole life because something isn't perfect. You keep the core inputs that are working, and you tweak what's not. You keep the standard, you adjust the strategy. Let's bring this to a place you can feel. A small business owner running a local service company. Maybe it's landscaping, HVAC, cleaning, roofing, plumbing. In one season, calls are coming in steady. In another season, the phone is quiet. The owner who panics starts discounting, blaming, and spiraling. The owner who adapts looks at what drives leads. They tighten their follow-up. They ask past customers for referrals. They improve their online reviews by delivering an experience worth reviewing. They sharpen their estimates. They cut wasted costs. They train their team. They don't beg the market. They adjust to it. That's winning. Now, adaptation isn't just external. It's internal too. Your energy changes. Your life responsibilities change. Your seasons change. The mistake people make is trying to run the same intensity all year long. They go hard, they burn out, they disappear. Then they restart. That cycle feels like effort, but it produces mediocrity. The winning move is sustainability. You learn your seasons and you plan accordingly. Some weeks are heavy, some are lighter. The standard stays, but the volume adjusts. You don't disappear. You shift gears while keeping traction. You don't skip 2 days in a row. You don't break your identity just because the week got messy. This is where your daily review becomes a weapon, not for self-criticism, for course correction. A pilot doesn't fly a perfect straight line. A pilot constantly adjusts for wind. That's what keeps the plane on course. Your life is no different if you wait until you're completely off course. The correction is painful if you adjust daily. The correction is small and smooth. Now let's talk about a major reason people fail to adapt. Pride. Pride makes you defend old methods. Pride makes you refuse feedback. Pride makes you pretend you don't need help. Pride makes you cling to being right instead of getting better. A winner doesn't cling. A winner learns. A winner can say, that was my best approach at the time, and now I have better information. That is strength. That is maturity. That is leadership. And the fastest learners win. Not because they have a secret, because they're willing to look foolish for a season. They ask questions. They practice. They refine. They take the hit to their ego so they don't take the hit to their future. There's a mindset shift that makes adaptation automatic. You stop seeing failure as a verdict and start seeing it as a report. A verdict says, you're done. A report says, here's what happened, now adjust. Winners treat setbacks as reports. They review, refine, and return to execution. They don't spiral. They don't dramatize. They don't quit. They make the next decision cleaner than the last. And here's the hard truth that will keep you honest. If you keep getting the same result, it's because you're repeating the same pattern, different day. Same pattern. You can't out-hustle a broken strategy. You can't outwork a lack of clarity. You can't grind your way around basic truth. Adaptation is you being brave enough to change the pattern. So what do you do today practically to build this edge? You choose one measurement that matters in your arena, and you track it weekly, not obsessively, weekly. You choose one habit that wastes your attention, and you put friction in front of it. You choose one tactic that is working, and you commit to it long enough to compound. You choose one skill that would raise your value, and you practice it with daily reps. Then you review, adjust, and repeat. That's how you stay ahead, not by being frantic, by being responsive and steady. And understand this. Adaptation doesn't mean your goals change every time you feel discomfort. Your goals stay anchored. Your methods evolve. Your standards stay. Your ego shrinks. Your learning expands. Your execution stays relentless. This is how you become dangerous in the best way, because when you can adapt, life can't corner you. When you can adjust, setbacks can't trap you. When you can learn, you can always climb. The person who wins isn't the person who never gets hit. It's the person who gets hit, reads the lesson, and comes back smarter. If this audiobook is bringing you value so far, take a moment to like it. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. Leave a comment with your biggest takeaway, and subscribe to Prime Audiobooks for more content like this. Now, let's continue. So let's finish this chapter with questions that demand action, not thought. Where have you been confusing repetition with progress? And what signal would tell you the truth? What is one thing in your life that no longer serves your standard? And what would it look like to subtract it this week? What's working right now that you've been tempted to abandon out of boredom? And what would happen if you doubled down until it compounded? When you face your next setback, will you treat it like a verdict or a report? And what is the specific adjustment you will make within 24 hours to prove you can adapt and keep winning? Chapter 6. The life you earn by winning daily. You've built this from the inside out. A decision to stop negotiating with yourself. A process that holds on normal days. A mindset that treats resistance like training, skills that make people trust you, and an edge through adaptation that keeps you effective when reality shifts. None of that is theory. It's a way of living that turns effort into outcomes and character into results. Now this final chapter is about what happens when you keep showing up long enough for winning to become your default. Winning isn't a trophy you hold. It's a standard you live. It's the kind of person you become when nobody is clapping. When you're tired, when the week is messy, when the plan needs adjusting, and you still do the next right action. That's the real prize. You stop being at the mercy of your moods and your circumstances, and you start operating from your code. A lot of people think they want to win, But what they actually want is to feel like a winner without paying the price. They want the confidence without the reps, the respect without the reliability, the freedom without the discipline. But freedom is built, not wished for. The most independent people in America, the ones who can say no, the ones who can walk away from bad deals, the ones who can protect their families and their peace, they didn't get that by accident. They earned it through standards, skills, and consistency. So let's talk about the kind of life you earn by winning daily. You earn clarity. You don't wake up confused about what matters. You wake up with a direction and a priority. You earn confidence, not as a feeling, as evidence. You've proven to yourself over and over that you follow through. You earn stability under pressure. When life gets loud, you don't break. You tighten your focus. You do the work. You make the adjustment. You earn respect. Not because you demand it, because your name becomes synonymous with quality and truth. You earn better relationships because you communicate clearly, set boundaries, and lead your emotions instead of dumping them. And you earn momentum. Momentum is one of the most underrated forms of power. When you have momentum, small actions create big results. When you have momentum, you don't need constant motivation because the machine is already moving. But momentum doesn't appear through luck. It appears through daily wins. Daily wins look simple. A focused block of work, a workout you didn't want to do, a hard conversation handled with calm clarity, a budget decision that protects your future, an early bedtime that protects your next morning, a small adjustment made immediately instead of postponed. These aren't glamorous, they're powerful. Now here's the part most people miss. Winning daily is not about being perfect. It's about being fast to return to your standards, fast to tell the truth, fast to correct course, fast to act before excuses multiply. If you slip, you don't turn it into a week-long collapse. You don't throw away the entire day because the morning went sideways. You don't wait for a clean slate. You adjust and continue. That speed is what separates winners from people who keep restarting their lives every Monday. There's a picture I want you to hold in your mind. Imagine two people learning the same skill, building the same business, trying to get in the same shape. One person is constantly starting over. The other person is constantly returning to the plan. Over a year, the second person doesn't just improve, they transform. Because they didn't rely on perfect streaks. They relied on fast recovery. They treated setbacks like reports and kept their identity intact. They kept the boulder rolling. Now I want to talk directly about the biggest enemy of long-term winning, drifting. Drifting is subtle. It doesn't show up as a dramatic decision to quit. It shows up as small compromises. The focus block gets shorter. The daily review disappears. The standards become flexible. The sleep gets sacrificed. The phone creeps back into the center of your life. The conversations become vague again. The boundaries soften. It feels harmless because it's gradual. Then one day you look up and realize you're back in almost. You prevent drifting by doing one thing. You protect your identity with rituals. A ritual is a small, repeated action that anchors your standard. It's not a big production. It's a signal to your mind that you are who you said you are. A ritual could be beginning each morning by deciding the day's one priority before you touch your phone. It could be a short workout warm-up that you never skip because it starts the process. It could be an evening review where you ask yourself if you kept your word and what adjustment you'll make tomorrow. It could be a weekly audit of one measurement that matters. Rituals keep you from becoming accidental, and because you're listening in the real world, with real responsibilities. I want you to hear this clearly. Winning does not require you to be extreme. It requires you to be consistent. Your standards should be high, but your process should be realistic. You're not trying to perform one heroic month. You're trying to build a life that keeps producing. That means your winning life includes recovery, family, relationships, health, and meaning. A lot of people chase success and lose themselves. That's not winning. That's a trade you regret later. Real winning is alignment. Your actions match your values. Your calendar matches your priorities. Your habits match the future you say you want. So ask yourself what you're actually winning for. Some people win for status, and they stay empty. Some people win to prove something, and they stay angry. But if you win for something grounded, you become unstoppable. You win to build a stable home. You win to create freedom. You win to set an example for your kids. You win to serve your community. You win to become the kind of person you respect. When your why is clean, discipline stops feeling like punishment. Discipline becomes protection. And now I want you to bring all 6 chapters together into one clear reality. Winning is a daily practice that touches every part of your life. The decision is your starting line. You stop bargaining, you choose a standard, and you prove it with action. The process is your bridge. You own inputs, protect focus, review and adjust. The mindset is your armor. You separate feelings from decisions. You treat obstacles as terrain. You protect your attention. The skills are your leverage. You communicate clearly, set boundaries, and become someone people trust. Adaptation is your edge. You read reality. Subtract what doesn't matter. Double down on what works, and treat setbacks as reports. And now, in this final chapter, you make it all permanent by choosing daily wins that build the life you want. Permanent doesn't mean rigid. Permanent means committed. It means you don't need to reinvent yourself every time life changes. You have a code, you have a process, you have a way to think, you have skills people respect. You have the ability to adapt. That's what makes you durable. So here's what I want you to do from this point forward, not as a dramatic moment, as a steady reality. Choose your arena, keep your standard, execute your inputs, protect your focus, review your day. Make small adjustments fast, tell the truth early, communicate clearly, hold your boundaries, lead your emotions, subtract distractions, double down on what works, and when you get hit, get back up smarter. That's how you win in anything you do. Not once, repeatedly. Because the world is full of people who are talented and inconsistent, full of people who have information and no follow-through, full of people who want results but won't pay the cost. Your advantage is that you are becoming the person who pays the cost. Calmly, daily, without needing applause, you are building a reputation with yourself first, and that changes everything. If this audiobook is bringing you value so far, take a moment to like it. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. Leave a comment with your biggest takeaway, and subscribe to Prime Audiobooks for more content like this. Now, let's continue. Now let this land as the closing challenge that turns listening into action. What is the standard you will refuse to negotiate starting today, even when the week gets messy? What is the one daily win that, if you did it consistently, would change your entire year? Where have you been drifting? And what ritual will you put in place to anchor your identity before drift becomes decline? Who benefits when you win? And what kind of example are you choosing to set with your habits, your words, and your follow-through when the next obstacle shows up? How will you prove to yourself immediately that you don't need perfect conditions to keep moving and keep winning?